Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. Monday the 15th. If you're not getting into the Christmas spirit right now, it's not going to happen. We're ready to go. Plenty to talk about in the world of Michigan. It's always a lot to talk about the world of Michigan, but man, right now it's like headline news everywhere. Michigan! And that's all right. You know, sometimes you're in the headlines and, sometimes you're not. But they are the headlines. You can't deny that. We're going to get to the coaches and what happened over the weekend, where Michigan sits in their coaching search. Also, we've got some basketball news for you. Dusty May spoke to the media this afternoon. I was there. So we'll get you the latest on what is being said about the number 2 basketball team in the country, who got their first Big Ten road win on Saturday night. Two things, I was outside, it's really cold. It's Michigan, you get used to that, the wind chill, sub-zero and everything else. But this weekend, I see it's just popular. If you watch one, whether you're on Instagram or TikTok, they'll send you 100 other ones. I watched one person go out and at like 6 a.m. and with a hatchet and chop this tub of freezing cold water, get the ice at the top and then do a cold plunge, and I'm sitting, in a electric blanket, watching all these different people do these cold plunges, and they all get out, talking about how life-changing it is and everything else. And when I got in my car, there was no snow to clear off or everything else. So I just fired it up and I was driving, and I was thinking, this is kind of like, this is a cold plunge in the car. And then I got out of the car and only had to walk really, 4 minutes at the most across this parking lot. And I had a hat and I had earmuffs and gloves, and the wind still was cutting into my face. And I said, this feels like I don't need a cold plunge. And then I thought, I don't think I can handle a cold plunge, because not only am I not enjoying it, I can't handle it with the cold air in my face. I did handle it and it happened, but I'm not here to complain about it. Just something that I thought about today. And one other thing before I go to the coaches is that I was also looking around online this week, and they had an automated, you see all these different, automated cars. I never really thought that was going to fly. You still may think that's the way of the future, or, get with the times, whatever. It's fine. You can believe that. I don't. But they had an automated snowblower, and I was watching it clear off someone's driveway, and the guy was sitting at his couch, and he was looking out the window, but he also had a camera on the snowblower, and he was able to, work the joysticks around his driveway. And I thought that could be something that I could get behind. You could say you're lazy if you had one of those. I've seen them. They have them. I actually think we may have had one at one time, a vacuum in the house, and it just runs into everything. And the cats and dogs, they flip it over, they jump on top. They're funny. I've never seen a lawnmower one. If you had a lot of lawn, maybe that would be cool, to have the, automated lawnmower. But the one I can get behind is an automated snowblower. I don't really have a lot of area to like a cement driveway to, clear off that way. It would need to be like a remote truck that was going to clear the snow, and that's going to be too pricey and anything else. But that was the one that I could see that I'm behind. That's for the third time that I've said that way. So there we are. And that's it. Now, a lot of what we're going to talk about, we've got the pursuit of Michigan's next head coach, and a lot of the names have stayed the same. And I think right now it's not a holding pattern, because at any point if there is a coach, let's say Warde Manuel and whoever else is helping him and advising him, if they have 10 names and the ones that are being talked about the most, like DeBoer and Dillingham and Jedfish and Minter and Drinkowitz and whoever else that you want to put, they just say, oh, those are the people that are being talked about. Okay. But then there's someone on that list, and if this fluid situation, it could happen, and it could come out of nowhere. That wouldn't be a huge shock to me. I thought that Jake Butt has been making some interesting points. One point he made was that Michigan didn't do a search process, after Sharon. Now, if he would have said that back when it was happening, I think I said this Friday, that would have been a great point, to make. And I don't think anybody would have, it's easy to say now, oh yeah, I'd have been right with Jake. Jake's awesome, which is all true. Jake is awesome, but nobody was saying that at the time. It was, more deserved the job, of taking a look at it. But his other point on there was one that has stayed with me. And he said, there's always going to be like the 10 really viable candidates for a top 5. Even if you wanted to be stingy and say Michigan's not a top 5 job, I think it is. You probably think it is too. But if you wanted to say top 10, even if you wanted to say top 10, there's always going to be, what Butt said, about 10 or 15 candidates, I believe, is what he posted, that would be viable for this Michigan job. And, I believe that. I believe that, he's right on when he's saying that. Talking about the coaches, the first one is Kalen DeBoer. This was I watching yesterday that it reminded me of this DeBoer dance. Oh, it was the Bills at the Patriots. Patriots got up 21-0. The Bills came all the way back, but it was right towards halftime. And there was, minute 50 on the clock. The Patriots had the ball, and the announcer's like, there was 7 yards, and there was a dance. And I said, they don't know if Buffalo wants to call the timeout. New England doesn't know if they want to call out timeout. It's going to depend on this next play. And that's a little bit, it reminded me of what's going on with DeBoer. DeBoer has got a game as the head coach of Alabama coming up on Friday. And Alabama's like, I don't know. Do we really want DeBoer? Well, yeah, we're saying we want him. Of course, we're saying we want him right now. We could win a national championship this year. We are the favorite to beat Oklahoma this Friday. And if they do, and of course they win another one, Alabama fans, DeBoer, they're going to be thinking about commissioning a statue for him. So the fans are like, they don't know whether to call a timeout. We're going to wait and see until Friday. Did you really think that DeBoer, he wouldn't be worth anything as a head coach if he told his agent or his family or anything else, like, oh yeah, I hate Tuscaloosa, I can't wait to get out of here. If we lose Friday, I'm out. You don't say anything like that. You work the process, you use the process, and you get some sweeteners to stay where you're at. Certainly if they win the game, besides any bonuses that he might have, he could say, if he didn't want, a bump himself, a couple more mil, if he didn't want, your staff always wants a little bit more, and your NIL wants a little bit more, and the facilities always need a little bit more. You can ask for a lot more with a win on Friday. So there's still a possibility if DeBoer is Michigan's top candidate, and I think that he could be and probably is, that we're going to have to play the game on when to call time, what happens on Friday. So I'm going to wait until then. You could argue to me that Michigan doesn't have a top candidate because Dillingham, they might have identified 3 or 4 guys, how many ever, but I believe that Dillingham and DeBoer are two of the guys that they would like to coach. And, Dilly down at Arizona State is the apple of a lot of Michigan fans' eyes. And, he came out, was really emotional, and the Sun Devils have talked about he has the extension in front of him. He has yet to sign that as we sit here at 2:11 on this Monday. So until that signature is affixed on the new one, he's alive as a possibility for the next head coach. So for this week, and again, somebody could parachute in. There could be something else. People tell you to be patient. We're not going to be patient. We're thinking about it all the time. We want more and more information. But Friday is the next big piece in the Michigan coaching search. As if Alabama loses, I think we're going to find out about DeBoer quickly. By this time next week, we would find out about DeBoer. I do believe that if Alabama wins that game, it would be very unlikely, I would actually say shocking at that point, to see DeBoer then leave. I don't think Alabama fans would want him to leave. I think if he loses on Friday, they might want him to leave. And a lot of times, the fans, not all the time, but are a pretty good representation of, how everyone is, thinking about the coach. And I think down there it goes a long way. So, that's the first thing when it comes to DeBoer. And then, Dillingham, he's probably wise to wait before he puts his signature on anything. Because then if Alabama wins, if he is not number one on the list, or if he's just there as one of the top candidates, I think he'll probably move in as the top guy. That's I feel like everyone is going to be in agreement with this. So I state it. Now, having said that, I always like to see what the people are saying, and I'd like to get them up in real time so we could then, you could say, well, yeah, but what about this point? What about that point? What about Michigan Blockhead, who's got Maize and Blue Balloons as his avatar? I love it. MBH, pretty cool. Welcome in. The Maize and Blue Cowboy says, if we don't hear about a coach by Tuesday night, I think we're in trouble. I disagree with that. I think we have the next part is Friday. I'm not expecting a coach to be named by Tuesday. Renan Van. I liked it better when he was, I think, RVB. He went by something like that, some acronym close to that. There was a V and there was an R in there. He says, we are not in trouble. It's Michigan. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get crazy and feel like that, the world's caving in and everything else, I'm going to step back and I am going to agree to say it's Michigan. It's a coveted job. They're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. It's not funny, but it is kind of funny when you think about how we all will get attached to certain candidates, and if it doesn't happen, and then it's somebody else, it's like a Debbie Downer to you. I get that. We're going to get to a guy that could be a Debbie Downer. Linda is asking if the regents have a say and vote on the coaching hire. I don't think so. I think that I'm not 100% sure and versed in the politics and everything that goes on with the regents, but you have an athletic director. Can they sit in on some of the interviews? And then do they have the ear then of the athletic director where they're advising him? I don't think so either. I think that I don't know if it's just Ward. Maybe they're. I don't even know how the interview process is. Maybe that's something I need to look into. If it's Ward, whether he's going to be talking to somebody via Zoom or on his cell, or if he's actually they've you can't go down really and fly into Tuscaloosa. Everybody's going to know what's happening there. Certainly he's talking to his agents, but when they do have some kind of a formal interview, is it just Manuel And said coach, I'm not sure. MBH is talking about Brian Kelly. I'll alleviate your concerns. There's zero chance that Brian Kelly is going to be the next Michigan coach. That's where I'm sitting. I don't. This looks like Jesus. He says the longer this takes, the more I'm sure Michigan is going to blank it up. Yeah, I get that because you're a nervous wreck and everything else, but that is not a good approach to take. That is not, your thoughts are going to make you feel a certain way. I would say not to feel that way. I would, you might, have those thoughts and try to push those out and say, let's just see what they come up with. There's a world where they might be eyeballing someone in the NFL and that team is still alive. And then it goes into actually the playoffs and it could be for so long. And I get people are going to be like, oh, this is but it could be still a good coach. Yes, that's right. That's right. I am going to tab Ripstar as number one right here. There's this, he's number one. That's it. LJ is talking about Tony Annese. Tony Annese, and he says it's a stretch. Annese is very interesting. Annese reminds me of Cignetti a little bit. Now, Annese didn't go somewhere like Cignetti to be with Nick Saban and then leave and go to James Madison and win, but he has been at Ferris State for a very long time and he's been super successful and he's won championships there and his name gets brought up all the time. I don't know, it was brought up a lot when Jim Harbaugh had that 48-hour window with the Vikings a few years ago. Annese's name was there and everybody's like, Annese's a pretty good coach. Every time Michigan State, seems like they have an opening every other year. His name gets brought up a lot there. The only thing negative that I would say about Tony, and it's not negative, he was in the news for, smoking a cigar after a championship and people were on him about that. I don't know. It feels like a little bit of a too big of a jump up, but hey, Tony Annese, I would not completely say that, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's the worst move. That's one of those where it's a grand slam or a strikeout. So, he was totally in over his head. He knew this from the start. There was a reason that he was down there, at Ferris and nobody was giving him a shot. Nobody knew he couldn't recruit, or you'd be like, this is the next Kurt Cignetti. So I don't mind taking, big swings. Even back when Michigan got Rodriguez, I thought, wow, the conversation was always, what if Michigan was running one of these systems, these spreads with an athletic quarterback, the way they could recruit. Oh, and I thought, let's go. Let's do it. Now, Rodriguez was a terrible fit and didn't care about defense. And, the thing blew up on him. You'd have to Google how old Tony is. You could do that. Matthew wants a home run, and he says it has to be a home run. The scandals and investigations need to stop. Do us fans really have anyone to trust inside? Doesn't trust anyone within the athletic department to make a solid hire? Yeah, Warde is keeping his job, but what about after this investigation is complete? If Michigan doesn't have a head coach by Christmas, this could get ugly. Yeah, I don't know about the ugly part. I feel like it'll feel like that, but let's wait and see. They're going to, at some point, get a coach. I feel like I'm out in the Vatican where, people are sitting around and everybody's waiting to celebrate Anus Pompey. And the smoke goes up and, they've got a new pope. But in the meantime, they're like, they can't come to they can't get a pope. Where's the new pope? And then, they get this one. They're like, we like the new pope. But I get it, along the way. I'll get a little bit into Ward. That's kind of, it's not a revelation or anything. It's just my thoughts in an ever evolving world of Michigan athletics and where I'm sitting right now with Warde Manuel. Anise, mid-60s. So, I would say if you were just asking me what age would you like the coach to be, I would say younger than 60. So mid-60s sounds too old. Dilly. I think Dilly would be a very popular hire. I feel like he could be a great hire. He would feel like a home run hire. There's only one reservation, and I don't know if it would, almost any coach you could come up with. Hell, Nick Saban, you could say, Saban never had to deal with NIL. That's why he left the game, and he's been out of the game, and yet, he's the greatest coach ever. How old's Nick Saban? Dilly has never been in the Midwest before. I don't know if he's even, if he even could locate the state of Michigan on a map. I know he went up to Oregon, but he is a desert guy. And true enough, the game has changed where it's coast to coast. Half of the conference or, 4 teams are actually, playing on the West Coast. But not having someone with Midwest ties is at least something to consider when it comes down to Dilly. And I know Dan Lanning was already, he played in, Southern Missouri, and then he was at Georgia. He might have been at Memphis for a minute. That's not really the North or the West. And then he went out West, and he's having great success. But that's one. Maybe you could point to another one. It's just, Jonathan Smith, Michigan State fans are saying the same thing. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he's, has no ties to this area. It seemed to matter. John Cooper had no ties to the area. He came from Arizona State. He didn't get it. He didn't get the Midwest. Rodriguez, he didn't understand, Missouri, and he didn't understand Michigan. He didn't understand anything. But that doesn't mean that Dilly can't adjust and, he could be just fine. Like I said, I think that he would almost be a universally looked at great hire. So, if it's DeBoer has got, I know Michigan beat him, but what he does have is he's got a very nice resume. When you look at the coach with top 25 coaches, winning percentage against the top 25, Kalen DeBoer is number 1, 15-3 against top 25 teams since Fresno, Washington, and Alabama. That's a pretty attractive bullet point on your resume. Top winning percentage against top 25 teams. And, Fresno, Washington, and Bama. And there's a lot to like there. I mean, it almost gives you the, the check mark and everything that you're looking for. So that's why people like DeBoer so much. So DeBoer and Dillingham. Now you get to the 2 other names that bring in various amounts of ooh or ah. You don't really know. Conflicting emotions. Jed Fish at Washington, and then Jesse Minter with the Chargers. You have to ask yourself, do you want Michigan to have a clean break from Jim Harbaugh? Because Minter and Fish are Harbaugh guys. And you can say, Fish, is it really? Fisher and Minter both spent the same amount of time in Ann Arbor. So if you feel like Minter, who was hired and was the defensive coordinator for 2 years under Jim Harbaugh, is a Harbaugh guy, and he's obviously coaching with him now. And Fish, who was, quarterback coach, offensive passing for 2 years at Michigan, it was the same thing. Now, he wasn't an offensive coordinator. Maybe you want to make the separation that way or something, but To me, both of those guys are Harbaugh guys. That doesn't stop me. I'm glad that Michigan hired Jim Harbaugh, and it was a successful tenure, Jim Harbaugh. And so I would take Jim Harbaugh again. But I understand people that are like, they want a clean break away from that. It was too much. Whether it was him thinking about the NFL or the other 100 things that you could come up with about his hires, his NCAA, all of that. And sure, there's a lot of people, and this is what happens when you're a fan. You need to make an excuse. You don't care. The best excuse for Jim Harbaugh is that you take anything that was controversial and you just move it over to Warde Manuel and you just put it all on him. And that's where, for me, I don't have the, I think I'm different than most fans. That's where you lose me. I liked Harbaugh. I would hire another Harbaugh. I also think Warde has done a fine job, except when you watch, this is where I've changed over the last week since Sharon's departure. And yeah, I mean, it's just been as bad as could be with every single video, every news report. But what also comes along with it, I mean, this just TMZ made story of hookers and whatever, force. I mean, with Sharon Moore, it has then been, look at what's happened at Michigan, and everybody's like, "Oh, Warde Manuel, are you kidding me? Out!" And that's what I get. I get people. The part of the nature of the job of the athletic director is that, he is he ultimately responsible if he goes through and does the hiring and firing. I mean, it's under his watch, so there is, part of that. The part where fans lose me when it comes to Warde is that they're like, Jim Harbaugh was great, Warde Manuel's a clown. All right, didn't Jim Harbaugh hire all those guys? But then Warde, not like Warde's done everything perfect. His firing of Sharon Moore being the only person in the room, maybe that's the one that's going to end up costing him his job. Not doing something, he could have called me when he was going to hire, let's say, Shemi, or if he was hiring anyone, and he would say, "Hey, do you think we should do an assessment on social media? Comb through and look through somebody's social media history." And I would say, "Yeah, your research firm isn't doing that. That seems like a no-brainer." And he didn't do that, so I'll blame him for that. But all the other stuff that people want to lay at his feet, I would argue almost through case by case. But I'm not going to do that today. What I would say is that if you're a fan, this is a great thing about being a fan. You can pick and choose and do whatever you want. You loved Harbaugh, he brought you a championship. Take all the negative things and just say Warde Manuel's a clown. Get rid of him. And there is a part is that if you get this hire, maybe you'll like it. You don't have to give Warde Manuel any credit and say thanks or do anything. And if he does get fired, Warde Manuel doesn't need any sympathy. He gets paid an incredible amount of money, over $2 million a year, and he just got a new 5-year deal. So let's say that he does get fired in the spring or something. That's what a lot of people have said. "Oh, do the hire and then they'll fire, or they'll let him go." Which is kind of the same thing. But it's the nature of the job. He's signed till 2030. And if they fire him at 57 years old, he's got damn near $10 million. It's a really nice, I'd call it a golden parachute. Warde Manuel might be even, after he goes through this and works really hard, he might just say, "Thanks. Thanks for firing me." Hey, he could go anywhere. He can just that's a nice retirement. Would you like to retire at 57 years old? Here's $10 million. I'll take it. Let's do it. I don't know if he's ever going to have that day where in 10 or 20 years, you're at a Michigan game and they say, let's all welcome today's honorary captain, Warde Manuel. Boo. They would be booed if they did it next year. But I don't know, then it'll be like, hey. This year at one of the games, I was sitting in the press box and there was a figure that was working his way down the aisle. And it was former Michigan athletic director Bill Martin. And Bill Martin, there's many people that hated Bill Martin. Comes with the territory. He was the athletic director. They'd say, Bill Martin, he's doing this only for financial gain. He owns all these parcels in Michigan, and he's a conflict of interest. I mean, it was just on and on and on. People would send me a Bill Martin this, Bill Martin that. He, botched the lesson. He's done everything. And he came by, and it's okay, Bill. And he was able to, say hi to him. But I don't know if they said hi, if they brought Bill Martin out there, how many people would be like, oh, yeah, Bill Martin. Probably get a little maybe a couple people who's this guy? Boo. But that's it. So that's how I feel about Warde. That's where I'm at with the coaches. And I'll say it. I do not feel like I would just throw Minter out or throw Fish out because of their Harbaugh ties. Fish doesn't make me sit back. He hasn't done anything where you'd say, wow, this guy's a great coach. Jake Butt wrote a real nice tweet about how much he likes Fish and how innovative he is. And he certainly has all the NFL experience. So, it's not like he's the worst candidate in the world. He hasn't won anything. And then you look towards Minter, he's never been a head coach. And there's a lot of people that would be the reason that they would not want him. He's never been a head coach. We want a coach with head coaching experience. I completely understand that, especially from the one you just hired. It almost happens without fail. This is why I don't think it'll be Minter. If you've got a short, fat guy that's a coach, the next one is usually a tall, skinny guy. If you've got a real taskmaster, the next guy usually is a player's coach. It kind of goes that way. Sharon Moore was a continuity hire with no experience. Minter with no experience. I don't think people are. I don't think he's going to get hired because of that. So that's why I am where I am at. So those are my thoughts on DeBoer, Dillingham, Fish, and Minter. Not excluding those last two, but I understand if you want a clean sweep. A reset with the department, because you've turned on the news and Michigan has been stained. And I understand, having said everything I said about Warde, is that you just want him out because it's and blame everything on him. I understand that too. I'm not really holding it against you. I am saying that when you look at it, something to think about. Loving Jim Harbaugh and never acting like he did anything wrong. He's just the greatest ever. The NCAA, we're out to get him from the start. But Warde, he's the clown. Okay. But hey, you're a fan. You can do it however you want. Play it out however you want. I'm telling you how I think about it. I like hearing what you have to say about it. But we're not going to agree on everything. That's it. Let's go through some more of the feedback, and we'll get to some basketball news from Dusty May. Ripstar said Jed worked at Arizona, and it's just as impressive as Dilly. Oh, his success when, they were picked to be dead last, and what he did there, that's why he was able to get the Washington job. That's a good point. Treppa says Jack Ebling said something. Old Jack Ebling. Old yellow journalism Ebling. Old Jack of the Beanstalk. You know, I don't know. Like, I get that Jack Ebling is part of the East Lansing Mafia, you know, the Michigan State Mafia. I don't care what Jack Ebling had to say. Jack Ebling's a nice guy, and probably the rest of the Michigan State contingent is as well. But I don't care anything that Jack Ebling. What did he say? Something interesting. We'll have a party if that happens. If it's something interesting about Michigan, MB's giving an opinion. Let's see what it says. My opinion. This is MB. Kalen stays at Bama. Dillingham stays at Arizona State. And Jed, he says he doesn't see him leaving Washington. Jeff has it made at Louisville. Ooh, Jeff Brom. I like him. I wouldn't mind the Missouri head coach, Drinkwitz. But after that, who do we turn to? Tommy Reese? Absolutely not. The part about who do we turn to? Well, you just go down to the next 10 on your list who all have fine attributes. Drinkwitz is an interesting one because for all of you, maybe this is where you have to watch, and this is where fans will completely flip. Drinkwitz would like to take shots at Michigan during, about Connor Stallions. He always had a little quip about, Connor Stallions and Michigan cheating and everything else. But, now he's the Michigan coach. He didn't mean any of that. But that's it. When would I speculate is the time frame a new head coach will be announced? I say the key date is going to come up Friday to see what Alabama does. If Alabama wins, that takes DeBoer out of the picture, and that puts Dillingham on the spot. So I would say that if Alabama loses, we would know about Dillingham and DeBoer by Monday. And if they lose and DeBoer doesn't take the job, they go right to Dillingham, and then he has his decision to make. So I would say that over the weekend they could look through the fine print and everything else, and then Monday we would have the maize and blue smoke coming out of the chimney. Vamos Papa at next time this week if Alabama loses, as it applies to Cardinal DeBoer and Cardinal Dilly. After that, now if Alabama wins, I would still say that there'd be a possibility for Monday. So I think Monday, this Monday for the top two. Then after that, you're going to the next page, which has Minter and Fish on it. And like I said, thinking it over without having the head coaching experience and also the ties to Harbaugh, I don't think either Fish or Minter will get the job. I think if you want to get a reset, if you're a manual and you're thinking, you want the best coach, but also, there's a lot of good coaches. Why take anybody with a Harbaugh tie? You could be thinking that. Hell, you can make the case that's exactly why you'd want one as a Michigan fan, and then obviously you can make the case why you wouldn't. So those are, you got to ask yourself. Jack doesn't know squat. I don't know what we're talking about here. DVR. That would have been the easiest one to go with. Michael, 6980. All right. Nice hat. Looks like a poker hat. Big poker fan myself. Michael is saying, why is everyone saying Dillingham said no? I did not hear that in the interview at all. I don't know why they said it at all either. I mean, because he said he was perfectly happy in Arizona State. And he's still out there. D Original, he's been on D Original is on the coaching search. Scar and Dewar did a coaching pod last night. D Original was there making some points. It was a pretty good. It was a action-packed show. The 19th. No, that's right around the corner. I was going to say, wow, that sounds like a long time. Not really. What's that, Friday? Saturday? Rick says Michigan will be fine. But all these people who are willing to spend other donors' money don't know how it works. You know what I would say about the donors and everything else? It reminds me of what Scar was saying last night because, he was an AD in high school and, he would have people giving him money. And he liked that. And you have to have, money for your program. But then when the people would be like, this is what I think should happen, he's like, no, I'm making the calls. But, it's a lot bigger game going on in college with the amount of money that is being, potentially thrown out there. And for me, if somebody really had endless, like the Jolyn Ellison and her husband Larry, if they were really wanting to float everything and be like, yeah, here's 100, here's 200 million and everything else. So you could get any coach that you wanted. But they wanted to have a say. Jolyn, who didn't know who Brady Hoke was, but she said the guy that didn't wear the headsets. If she wanted to make the call on the next head coach, it's something that you have to think about. If it fits your things that you're looking for, if Jolyn wanted somebody who once played tennis because she was likes tennis or something like that, but wasn't qualified, you've got to be able to say no to that. I don't want Mark Rubio as the next head coach at Michigan. Here's Manny Diaz. I'm going to go ahead and guarantee that Manny Diaz is not ever going to set foot in Ann Arbor as head coach. Jay Harbaugh. We'll refer Rip back to the Harbaugh tree and no head coaching experience. It was the whole thing. Like, if Jay Harbaugh looks like he's going to be a great coach, he does. Well, his attention to detail as a special teams coordinator. The no head coaching, I would go to his uncle, John, who was a special teams coach at Philadelphia, and the Ravens hired him without coordinator experience. And then for the last 20 years, he's won a Super Bowl and he's been one of the best head coaches. So it's not unprecedented. I think a lot of people would point, oh, here we go with Harbaugh again. Jay Harbaugh. Woo! I don't think so. I don't. I get the feeling that Ward's got the Harbaugh list, and he's going like this. He's not going with anybody with any. But that's just my guess about Ward. Think about John Harbaugh, and the Ravens won, so that would have to play out for a long time, and it'd be driving people crazy. I would just say if he lost yesterday, if he was going to be fired, John Harbaugh is Jim's brother. But these two guys, if you followed it, are drastically different. They're similar in that they share the same last name and they're football coaches. Other than that, they're both great football coaches. But other than that, their personalities, their values, they're different. And that can happen. My brother, Tim Fithian, is nothing like me. He's older, and he's got all of his hair. He's in great shape. He makes a lot of money. He's nothing like, that's just the appearance. Actually, John and Jim, they kind of look like each other. But I don't know why I'm talking about John Harbaugh, because he's not coming in. YouTube doesn't show our names anymore. This is what DVR is saying. It doesn't show it on when I put it up on the screen. So nobody sees what I'm saying. I'm answering questions like I'm just making them up, or you can hear what I say, but you can't see it. No, you can see it. I'm looking at it. It's good to know. Select the number shown on your TV. I don't have a TV. I don't know why it's telling me to do that when Select the number shown on your TV. This helps confirm that it's you. All right. How about I just get out of that right now? My TV. No, it's rarely watch on my iPad and sometimes on this computer that I'm watching right now, but mostly on my phone. I don't know. So it doesn't show up to you, but it's showing up on YouTube. DVR. The originals thinking fish. I get it. There's like a 95% chance no matter what, it will be an upgrade. Well, at this point, with Sharon Moore, it's very easy to say that anybody is going to be an upgrade. Sharon Moore, if you, I was going to say if you take away from him being a fraud, he did have some nice things going for him. Like he connected with his players and was a good recruiter and a good spokesman for the program. The problem with that is that those very players that he was telling everybody about being unselfish and being a great teammate and being a family man, every time his mouth moved, he was sitting on a throne of lies. So yeah, I'll say that if somebody comes in, and isn't doing anybody on the staff, then they're got a 99%, 100% chance of being better than Sharon Moore. I was telling myself last week that I'm not going to be doing any yelling or screaming about Sharon Moore. Who's the leading candidate right now? DeBoer and Dillingham. And then I don't know. I don't know how Ward feels about the Harbaugh connection. My feeling is there's a lot of people that Ward hated Jim Harbaugh. Pushed him out, slashed his salary, pushed him out to the NFL. Didn't want him in anymore. Wanted to hire his own guy. But there's no doubt, the thing that will ultimately cost if Sharon Moore's or not Sharon Moore. Let's hit the delete button on that. If Warde Manuel gets fired in a couple months, it will mostly be because of everything that happened under Jim Harbaugh. Just the long laundry list of all the different guys from the Matt Weisses, the Shemmy stuff. You've got all the Stallions, the Burger Gate. I mean, all these things that went on. It'll be because of Harbaugh. So he may being charged with, I don't know if they're saying clean it up or they're just saying, hey, here's the directive. Just hire us another head coach because we have no university alignment. We have an interim president right now. So we're really counting on you, Ward. And then we're going to broom you out. I mean, this is the narrative. This is the thought that you're all we got or you'd be out now. But you also have this big fat $10 million contract. So yeah, we're going to wring out what we can out of you. But Ward might be thinking, you know what? Anybody associated with Jim Harbaugh is toxic. Now, fans would probably hate to hear that, but I think it's understandable. So the Fish and Minter, you say, they just coached here. That doesn't mean they're, Ward might think that, these guys were here and they coached under Jim Harbaugh. So you could say they are from the Harbaugh tree. You better believe a lot of the writers and broadcasters, when it happens, Jed Fish, who was quarterback coach in 2012, 2013, they'll know it. Obviously, Minter, the national championship defensive coordinator for Michigan under Jim Harbaugh. So the question might be after Dilly and DeBoer, after this weekend, or by this Monday, upcoming Monday, who would then be a leading candidate? And I would say that A lot of people would say Fish and Minter, and I would say, well, probably not because of the Harbaugh connection. So then you're going to a whole new batch of eligible candidates. And I think that we could, well, you list the Missouri coach and go through some others. Being able to talk with those guys and connect with them, what are their values? How are they selling themselves? A lot of times when you see both coach and athletic director in situations like this, they come out of it and they say, we talked, and within the first 5 minutes, we both knew that everything that they said, everything lined up, and we just knew it was a fit. So, Drinkowitz actually could be that guy where I'd say, you talked, you were making fun of us. And he just could, however, he would have that explanation at the ready, and he said, I was just giving my opinion. I thought Stallions was a rotten bastard. And you know what? The word that might be music to the Ward's ears. And there's quite a few people with the stain and reputation of everything that's gone on with Stallions that if it was the Missouri coach, people just might be just fine with hearing about. Yeah, we're kind of moving on from Coach Stallions, and all of that. Bill Wood throwing out a crazy option, Josh Allen's quarterback coach at Wyoming. It's not that crazy. Bill, people have put Joe Brady's name, no coaching experience, but he's Josh Allen's QB coach. Mission Forward has an Indiana helmet. Probably lost a bet or something. He wanted Minter when they hired Moore. So until he says no, I remain very hopeful. If I would just go back to how I was feeling when, Harbaugh, it was his right to look for NFL jobs, and that played out a lot longer. Michigan had played in the national championship game, and then they had a parade. And so all of this, and then he took Jesse Minter as defensive coordinator. If Jesse Minter wanted the Michigan job at that point, that would have been, I think, fine for a lot of Michigan fans. He was on the staff. It had the continuity. The people that just wanted to say, oh, they should have had a national search. DeBoer was already gone to Alabama. They could have had a national search there, but you were saying that everything that Michigan had done over the last 4 years, the players, how they, the everything that they had established is like, well, let's just blow it up now. We just won an Natty. It just doesn't work with me, the people that wanted to go outside and do all this other stuff. It doesn't fly. Here's Minter Love. Minter Love. LJ brings up the concern that everybody does that when they talk about Minter, says, how long is he going to stay? I don't know. I always look at it, if a coach is really good, that's good. The wandering eyes, how many guys, there's only so many coaches. There's only so many bows. Look at Jim Harbaugh. We're worried about Jim Harbaugh. That's what they said about Harbaugh when he's coming in. He'll be here a couple of years, he'll be gone. I think Minter, seeing the success that Mike McDonald has had with the Seahawks. When you talked about Minter when he was here, they would say, Minter and McDonald, you can't tell the difference when you talk with them. These guys are like twins. How they see the game, how they talk about the game, how they present themselves, their mannerisms. Minter and McDonald are clones. If I'm an NFL team and I'm looking at what's going on with Seattle, I'll say, well, wouldn't mind having a Mike McDonald clone. Where can we find one of those at? Oh, he's right there with the Chargers. So Minter's probably going to the NFL. But if he comes in at Michigan, he's going to have success. You think after 1 year, if he gets hired at Michigan, let's just say that, just run it through. If he comes in completely, has the defense back where they're like, oh, he's awesome. And then NFL teams are coming after him, I'm all right with that. I'll drive him to the airport. Thanks, Jesse. But it's likely that he would stay for a couple years. And again, then he would have success at Michigan, which would make him attractive, which NFL teams would come after him for. I'm all right with that. Remember the new college football. Nothing's lasting for very long. You get, the BCS was around for like 10 or 15 years. Then they went to the 4 teams. That was around for like 10 years. Now they do a 12 team and everybody wants to change it after 1 year. It's the same with coaches and players. I mean, it's instantaneous. I'm out. Transfer portal. See ya. Coaches, here, gone. Just give me a great head coach. Have a great year. If he wants to go, go. And the stuff about like, you want to hire someone who loves Michigan, is going to be here for 21 years. Good luck with that. Yeah, we've been through the Ferris stuff. KRB is asked about KDB, Kalen DeBoer. Kalen was just asked in his presser if he would be coaching Alabama next year. He said yes. Yeah, look, what do you want him to say? I don't know. We got a big game. I'm going to throw a distraction on here and say, I'll let you know Friday night. What did you want him to say? Let's put 100 press conferences up there where coaches left the next day or next week where they were asked specifically about coaching the team that they're on. And, you can't take anything. Even if he said, I guarantee I'll be here next year. This is where I want to coach. I love it. I never want to coach anywhere else. You'll be out. They all do that. You can say, unfortunately or fortunately, that's, they have to do it. Lie. And he's just too old. Why not talk to SIG's coordinators? Well, his DC just got a big raise, so that indicates that he's staying. His offensive coordinator, SIG is basically the offensive coordinator, but there's one there. I think there are people that aren't talking with him. I would go back to however you feel about Michigan and the parameters that are put out there. I'm guessing that the next coach is going to have former head coaching experience based on Sharon not having any. That's almost always how it works. You take a swing with a guy that didn't have any experience. The next guy's going to have experience. Then after that, it's the tall, skinny, short, fat guy. It happens. A prediction by Jesus. The hire will be done before Christmas. How likely is Minter or John Harbaugh? I will say unlikely. Jesus is on a heater. If they didn't hire before Christmas, they're totally incompetent. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Jesus, let's give you a little.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
I would like under the tree a little Michigan next head coach. Here's the statement from DeBoer this weekend. His family, they're very happy in Tuscaloosa. He remains extremely grateful. He has this incredible opportunity coming up for this playoff game against Oklahoma. I have not spoken and have no interest in speaking with anyone else about any other jobs. He's fully committed to the program. All right. What this really could have said, or what I see is that I believe his family is very happy there. If they beat Oklahoma, he's the toast of the town. Let's use this Michigan as a sweetener for anything else. Maybe his wife wants a fur coat. I have not spoken with and have no interest in speaking with anyone. Well, that's what your agent's for. Like if he said, I have not spoken with anybody. None of my agents have. I'm not interested in anything maize and blue. I'm not going to Michigan, guaranteed. But that's not what any of that said. I mean, we've seen enough of these where none of that. The colonel says it looks like Ward is not a part of this search. I don't know. You tell me. Where do you get that information from? You got to be careful where you get your information from, Colonel. And look, what I have found in this particular job here is that what drives subscriptions, what drives clicks, what drives views is talking about Warde Manuel. So a little drama piece on Warde Manuel, I would say consider the source. I don't know. When you say it looks like, I'm thinking that, who's the source that told you that? Your buddy who has got some insight? That's actually somebody that I would, at least listen to. But the other ones, I'm going to be saying, oh, not so sure. TKW Minners a no, and he's talking about his show cause. Yeah, that the show cause is about to expire this month, so this isn't true, and it does complicate it with the Chargers being in the playoffs. But the biggest part is that there's two big parts of I don't think why Minner is going to be in there. Is that I think Ward is going to look at it, and really anybody, if there's somebody else, I don't know who else is making the hire. Are they really like, let's just roll with some Harbaugh guys? That worked out really well for us. On the field, it did. Forget all of the negativity with why we're pushing Ward out and why we're making the hire, why we're going to fire him. It's all of this laundry list of these things that made Michigan look bad. Let's go right back to that well. Now, I can see how they wouldn't do that. I'm not saying for sure. I'm just saying that I can completely understand why it might go that way. Hadley is saying sign Jed Fish. His season is done, and he'd be the perfect fit for many reasons. The heck with the board. But let's not, Hadley, let's not get too emotional about it. Just because you could have Fish in up at the podium on Wednesday. Here's the new guy, and, maybe you could keep Underwood at that point. That's it. Let me throw some other stuff. Here's star quarterback talk. Go get an offensive stud that can bring the best out of our superstar quarterback. What I thought was interesting last night was that both Dewar and Scar, two guys that played at Michigan, love Michigan, and would do anything for Michigan. They were talking about the transfer portal and Bryce Underwood and Sam Levitt, who was at Arizona State, and he's in the transfer portal. Scar was watching some film of Levitt, and he said, what if the new coach wants Sam Levitt instead of Underwood? And it made it sound like Scar feels that Levitt is a much better quarterback than Underwood. There's a point there, and the point is that we don't know what Underwood's thinking, but the next head coach, we don't know what he's going to think about Underwood and what he is looking at with the transfer portal. And it's, I would say, this is a part that can be sad if you're a Michigan fan, and I get it. You had this generational quarterback from your own backyard who is the highest rated QB ever in recruiting history. And no, he didn't have a good season. It was underwhelming. But hey, again, he was 18. Next year was going to be big. When you bring in a new regime, that guy doesn't have to show loyalty, just like Underwood doesn't have to. Underwood's career at Michigan is up in the air right now. It's not fun to talk about. When you're a fan, you want, you get attached to these guys, but he could And if you're somebody that really likes Dillingham, you think that he wants Levitt or do you think he wants Underwood? And there's still the possibility that it could be Dilly. So now, having said all of that, I think that whoever the next head coach is, unless it's Dillingham, would probably embrace Underwood and want to keep him around because you could get 2 years out of him. And he's, you understand that you can have a freshman season like him. But if your point is that you're coming in and you're saying, look, this is not about, I love these players and these guys are 4 or 5 year guys. I will think about when Jim Harbaugh came in. They had a highly rated quarterback. What was his name? Morris? Is that his name? Shane Morris? Left-hander? He's going to be the guy. Harbaugh went and got a transfer in Jake Rudock. Got a transfer in, what was the guy's name from Houston? Wasn't worth a damn, but he got him too. Because he thought they would be better. The next head coach's job is to come in, is not to think like, oh, I'm going to go pat Bryce Underwood on the head and say, it's about to get the best player that you can next year on Michigan. These are harsh, say harsh times, but it's a harsh business that way. And on the other side, you can't really be upset if Underwood's right now looking and saying, I'm out. Because you could say how long it goes, and his future's hanging in the balance. He's got 5, 6 calls, 10 calls coming in a day from, and we'll develop you. And we'll give you $10 million. And we'll, all of that. That's all going on right now. How much, like Jed Fish, if he's saying, why don't you and Underwood talk right now? And if Underwood's like, let's go Fish. And Fish like, yeah, I'll do it. But they say that's going to be not the deciding factor, but part of it. Dan Lanning isn't leaving. USC just got the number 2 recruiting class in the nation. I don't know. Does somebody on here say Dan Lanning? I don't know if they did or not. Rich. Perhaps we should hold out for a great football mind and a forward-thinking manager of finances and personnel. Is this what we're talking about with the next AD? I tend to think like I get all that CEO, great manager of finances and personnel. I don't want to say that being a CEO and having all these credentials is overrated or anything. I'm thinking that this next head coach making the right hire, how much does it matter if I've got an MBA in business? Now, if you're talking about a head coach, perhaps we should hold out for a great football mind. I think you are. And a forward thinker. I like those two things. Great football mind. I'm with you. Rich, forward thinker. I'm all right there too. A manager of finances and personnel. You can hire those guys. Give me that first one. The second one's not bad either. But you don't have to be a manager of finances and personnel. That's what your GM is for. And the new coach needs to talk to, who's Michigan's GM? Karsnia needs to talk with him and say, you have your conversations with the numbers guy. He's a numbers guy. I don't know how much loyalty needs to be there. I mean, if he's just the, I don't want to call him just a bean counter because, you have to have a little bit of, when you have a presentation. I've heard, not Carson, who's the other person that, is the GM there, is, talking about the, the Michigan family and, what you have and all of that. If Kenny had our NIL budget, we'd be undefeated this year. Yeah, well, when people talk about Dillingham, they love his recruiting prowess and what he could do at Michigan. William thinks DeBoer is the safest pick, but Dilly has the highest ceiling. You know, William, I think that what you're saying is true. I agree with that. We've already been over Minter's show cause. That's not going to stop anything. It's this month, not April. Plus, they just had some lawsuit today that show causes. The Connor Stallions could be back in college football next year. I don't know about at Michigan. In fact, I don't think at Michigan, but he could go somewhere else. I don't know where. I don't know who would want him. Why the hate on Jed? He ain't that bad. Yeah, you know, people want that if he, you know, you want someone who is hot. And did Jed have a hot season? No. He would have been hotter coming out of Arizona. What he did, like, wow, he took a doormat and put him up. It's like Leopold at Kansas 2-3 years ago or something. Got there, turned it around, like, wow, this guy. Not so much this year. That doesn't mean everything, but that's a fan thing, and you're asking why. Dillingham was in the playoffs last year and damn near advanced with a doormat in Arizona State. That's a hot name. DeBoer has won everywhere he's at. He's got the highest winning percentage against the top 25 in college football. He's hot. That's how it's done. See, Brom isn't all that hot. I like him, but you know, he didn't win a championship at Purdue, but he was pretty good, and he's got the resume of being able to do a good job with quarterbacks. So that stuff's pretty nice. I already said there's no chance that Mark Rubio's getting the job. Manny Diaz. What's Manny Diaz done that you look at and say, oh, I like Manny Diaz? I'll wait on that one. I mean, I don't know. I think that maybe I'll claim this for myself or admit this. I just don't like Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz comes in. I'm going to have to make a decision. So I've got 100 texts that we could just continue to go through all day long. This is fun. Maybe every day start doing a pod again. Take a couple more. The Cowboy says Jed is a good coach, but just not for Michigan. SW Lion says, talking Dilly and loyalty, but also doesn't feel like the door is shut. Jed is a safe hire. DeBoer doesn't fit the Michigan style. He's too soft. They brought the West Coast style to Alabama, and they are soft and can't run the ball. Do we really want that at Michigan? Well, if what you were saying is true, that he was, so soft and he couldn't run the ball, no, you wouldn't want that at Michigan. But what he's actually done is that he has won everywhere he's at, including Alabama. So what you say, Brandon, what if they go and win the game on Saturday? What if they win another one? It's like, oh, this super soft coach, he's West Coast. Now, he was West Coast, Fresno and Washington, but he's got the Big Ten ties, too, if you look at his resume, the Midwest ties, I should say, and Big Ten, I guess. So there's a lot of people that like a passing QB or a passing offense. Around here, we argue about, we don't just, we argue about everything, but you can argue about play calling and just do they run or pass too much. And we have done that in my entire life. Rich Rod was hot, no doubt. Very hot. By hot coach, you mean anyone with a pulse that will take the job? No, I think Michigan, I sense sarcasm there, but Michigan has no shortage of candidates. Now, they might not get DeBoer or they might not get Dillingham. It's true enough. They might think that Fish and Minter are non-starters because of their connections to Harbaugh. But the next list of coaches on there, and whether you want to say they're hot or qualified, maybe both. I mean with anyone with a pulse. I mean, I get it. I mean, I get your sarcasm on there. We got more, and more. Now we're talking about we need a tactician and great recruiter. DJ Pizza. Wow. DJ Pizza, if I was looking for a new handle, a new nickname, a new avatar, DJ Pizza could be one that I, would steal from you. And DJ Pizza is asking if the next Michigan coaches keep the heavy run game usage. It's a great question. I don't know. I guess I got to find out who the next head coach is going to be, right? Maybe. Are you going to keep Hyder? I hope so. Are you keeping Jordan Marshall? You got Marshall and Hyder? I'm thinking you're going to run the ball a lot. I'll make this guarantee to you, DJ Pizza. One, that I will have pizza before 2026. And even though that looks like an AI-generated avatar with pizza, it looks pretty, I normally, I'd rather have like a real photo or something. Not all AI-generated pictures are bad. And I'm going to say DJ Pizza is an example of a great use of AI. Look at it. You got a stone oven in the back. I'm guessing those are flour and pepperoni that are sitting out there, and then the pizza in the foreground. The pizza actually doesn't look great. That's not how stone oven pizzas look. But it's still a 10, DJ Pizza. DJ Pizza. What's he talking about? What are you talking about, DJ Pizza? You like just going out and get a name like DJ Pizza. Do you eat frozen? Because frozen pizzas have come a long way. Suppose you do. I mean, you're DJ Pizza. You try a frozen pizza. You like a sourdough pizza. You like a lot of items. Explain this to me, DJ Pizza. Why does pepperoni really not go on anything else, but with pizza, it's just perfect? Explain the mixture. We'll come back, see if DJ Pizza is still out there. Teddy is out there. Well, Teddy, thanks for the Christmas gift. Let's give you one. That warms the cockles, whatever those are. And thank you very much. Mission forward. DeBoer is 19-7 at Alabama. Good, not great. Well, he was on the cusp of making the playoffs last year. He is in the playoffs this year. And true enough, he did get smacked around in the SEC championship game. I understand all of that. Ooh, we have one. Here it is. I am sidelined a little bit. Get your thoughts in. Let's see what DJ Pizza is saying about his pizza habit. Sourdough pizza, coal-fired. Now we're talking. I had some friends who When I used to work in Detroit, we used to go get, what was the pizza? Great pizza. Tomatoes, it was called. And they would get tomatoes. And aesthetically, tomatoes pizza is not that good looking. I think it is sourdough. It might not be, but it's cooked in a brick oven. I don't know, coal fired or whatever. But it just reminds me, you're talking pizza. There were a lot of people that I worked with that didn't like it just by the appearance. They'd say, "Oh, it's charred. It doesn't look like a really good pizza." Tomatoes pizza was great. You'd get that pizza, and it didn't matter how full you were, you could eat an extra large all by yourself. But I think that was fired up. And some pizza and coaching talk. What's better than that? Deep dish, Chicago style, nothing like it. Is that where they have like the candle wax or the chalkboard on the wall? Mission Forward. Lou Malnati's. One thing about me is that while I am provincial and I love the area and I like to support, local companies, and I don't know, I'm not a pizza snob or anything like that. I like Detroit pizza, but I love Chicago pizza. And I don't. Somebody, should I? People, it's a little phony to me. You like the area, but you're like, I got a bottle of Red Pop, some Better Made potato chips, and a Little Caesars pizza. Boy, there's nothing more Detroit than me. I'm a Michigan man. You're a phony. No. I don't know about Better Made. I happen to like Lay's better than Better Made. No, Red Pop, I'm down. And I actually, while I'm sure the people, if you were talking about Little Caesars, might say you always get some negativity, I happen to like Little Caesars. I like Chicago dogs too. We found that Mission Forward is a pizza guy. The worst one he's ever had was wonderful. I've got a story about the worst pizza ever. And I don't know, Mission Forward, if you'd be with me. A long time ago, a friend and I were completely out of money. We were in a foreign country. I'm sorry. We might have had, I don't know, just enough to buy a pizza, personal pizza. And then we were getting on a train and then we were going home. Again, it was in Europe. And we couldn't read the menu. So I ordered my pizza and my friend ordered his pizza. And then we were out of money. Had our train tickets to go home. That's it. My pizza came and it was not too shabby. I think some pepperoni on it. Maybe some green onion. Not bad. My friend's pizza, however, was covered in hair. And they were sardines. And mind you, we were starving at this point. And this was the only thing we were going to have all day and for the next 8 hours. And at this point, we're as hungry as can be. And I don't like anchovies. Certainly, I don't like them in Europe with hair all over them. But we're starving. When you're really starving, you see what you can tolerate. I grabbed my piece and I'm eating my pizza. And I'm like, well, this is a pretty good pizza. But I felt bad for my friend because I'm looking at him. And he's picking all the anchovies off and he eats it. And, he's gag reflex and everything else. And so I say, all right. They weren't very big pizza. That's the one part about mine. I had mine over in the corner. It wasn't very big pizza. So when I say one piece, it was like one bite. And I, greedily eat my one bite. But then I said, all right, I'll trade you for a piece. And he gave me some of that hairy pizza. And whoo, I just couldn't do it. As hungry as I was, my palate was not ready for anything like that. And it just didn't work. Now, Tyler, this could be a blast from the past. I'm going to have to say it is. because Tyler is saying, speaking of pizza, let's talk about the pizza. Oh, named after Paige. All right. Okay. Now I know where you're at. So Paige was the, Sharon's mistress. Yeah, I don't know about. Yeah, ha ha he he. I guess I don't know. I thought you were talking about Paige one time. I got catfished along with a couple friends of mine. I don't know, about 15 years ago, and the catfishing was done by a catfisher named Paige. Paige was a Michigan fan. Paige is, following me on Twitter. Paige, after a Michigan game, Paige was a very attractive young girl who was wearing this Michigan hat. And I remember that it was, she retweeted something about that I said about Tate Forcier. And she's like, I love Tate Forcier. And so I retweeted her. And look, there was a few friends of mine that were followers and like, wow, okay, hey, you're attractive. You get a few extra likes out there. And you're a Michigan fan. Why not? Hey. Well, Paige then had about 4 or 5 different identities. They were all, and true enough, I fell for it. I thought Paige was, a college student at Michigan. It was just enjoying my Michigan opinions. But that was not the case. Paige was a catfisher who had been talking in DMs with my friend, and he fell in love with her. Only to find out when they were finally going to meet, back and forth, photos and everything else, that Paige was not her name, and that was not her photo, and she was completely. There was nothing about Paige that was the same as this girl, which was unfortunate because the person was actually. It seemed like a completely decent, seemed like completely decent person that you would interact with online, fun, joking, Michigan fan, all these things. She was just using a different picture. And it was a picture of somebody very attractive, which attracted a bunch of people. And then it didn't happen. And then that all fell apart. Forcier was great quarterback for one game. No doubt. That was against Notre Dame. I can remember going to a party after that Notre Dame game, and so we're down at the party, and everybody's celebrating, Michigan wins over Notre Dame. And then they had the TVs on, and everybody was, shh, let's turn the volume up because here come the Michigan highlights. And it was Brent Musburger. Rich Rodriguez has found his signal caller. And everybody's, yeah! That was the highlight. Diaz. Mark Rubio mocked Michigan. Oh, Giordano's, that's some frozen pizza. That is good. No doubt. You can do worse than that. I said I was going to get to some Michigan basketball talk, and I better do that because we're close to the end. Boom. We'll see. I went through the coaching search, gave my thoughts on Ward, and now here we go. Michigan remains as the number 2 team. That's fine. I met with Dusty May today, and the Michigan basketball coach talked about what they want to get done over this. It's not really a break. They don't play until Sunday. So they're not playing necessarily any games. They will be practicing. He didn't have the details to back it up, but he said somebody who came from a mid-major and that would play, top tier teams, he said that you would try as a mid-major before Christmas and after Christmas to schedule, top talent. That's what you do. And Dusty indicated that he felt, and this is where he didn't have the stats to back it up, that there's a lot of upsets of major teams around Christmas. And he emphasized that to his team. So if that was something that you were thinking about, Dusty's ahead of you. I had a few questions for Dusty, and I screwed up on the first one. One was going back to Saturday, and it was on Yaks. Yaks will put together this box score, stat stuffing line that was picture perfect that I want to put in a frame and put on the wall back here. That's how good it was. And come to find out, it was one of the best scoring lines and box scores that you'll ever see in college basketball. Yaks has had 2 like this, and there's only been like 3 in the last 30 years. That's how rare it is for what Yaks did. Yaks also, Diggy Coit, I think it was his name, that was doing those step back threes and had 30 some odd points against Michigan. I also thought that Yaks was manning up and guarding him. And I wanted Dusty to talk about more than just the box score, because I know that they look at different things. Hey, he came out and hit 10 straight to start the second half. He was guarding Coit, took him completely out of the game. I asked him that, and then I asked him about guarding Coit, and he didn't mention anything about the beauty and the historic box score. He just talked about their defensive rotations and how there was a 25% chance that Yaks would end up on Coit. And so I was like, man, I should have just asked my specific question about the beauty of the box score. And so I missed that one. The next one I asked him about was, were there specific directions from the referee, a point of emphasis from the referees? Because Jimmy Jackson and Brando on the game on Saturday, when Washington got thrown out, he just had retaliatory push against one of the Michigan players. And of course he had got one for taunting the Michigan bench earlier. So he was out, and Dusty had a great answer. I would have to go back and read it. You go to the Maize and Blue Review, or you'll see what he had to say today, but it's just a long, interesting point about the emphasis of what the officials are looking at. I liked it. The next part I asked Dusty about was if he would consider being this. Does he have a dream of being an NBA coach? Did he think his style would work in the NBA, and did he have NBA aspirations? The long and short answer for Dusty, now again, this, you see the coaches this week that talked about it. I'm going to have to quote him. He likes the NBA. He thinks that there's all kinds of different systems that could work in the NBA. Okay, what's all this? Not working for me. Try to get you the quote. More. Here it is. Quote. Asked if he has NBA aspirations. Quote, Dusty, this is all too big of a dream. I don't think about where I could be coaching in the future. I want to win on Sunday and get better this week. That's what Dusty had to say today about NBA aspirations. So, yeah, they've got 2 games before. They should win them both before the new year. And the basketball team, you might live to be 100 years old, and you may never see as impressive of a game by a single player than Axel Lindenborg put out there on Saturday. That's how impressive he was. That's how great of a game. That's what a masterpiece that he put out there. The Yaks game, the Yaks season, the Michigan basketball season. Great job by Lindenborg. That's it. Thanks very much, Teddy. That is going to do it. A reminder. You might be looking for the perfect gift for that Michigan fan in your life. Guess what? I got it. It is the Maize and Blue Review. You get on the Maize and Blue Review and you just get in there and you go to on3.com and you click the Maize and Blue Review and you get instant access. Hot boards, coaching list, the latest. Josh Henske, I think, staying up till 4 or 5. I was texting him this morning and he get back to me like noon. I think he sleeps, like from 6 in the morning to maybe 10. And then, he's back on the coaching search. He's back doing it. So we'll see you over there on the Maize and Blue Review. Football, basketball, it's all there for you. Until then, Everybody have themselves a great day. So long. That might be a better show if I just put this right up here. The Michigan coaching search. Nobody liked me until it was a foggy night. But then Santa came to say, lead us. Lead us. And you know what happened? Then all the reindeer loved me. Where were you? Where were you when it was just the reindeer games? You wouldn't let me play, but when Santa tabs me on a foggy night, then all the reindeer loved me. That's just how life works. I'm not bitter about it. I'm pleased that I have the red nose. And what other reindeer is even talked about? It's not Donner or Blixen or whoever else. What other reindeer? I don't even know if I can name all of them. Name them. Dasher, Donner, Blitzen. There is Danner, Donner, and Blixen. I don't think any of those are correct. Rainer and Cupid. I recall this one. It's Rudolph. Comet. Name other ones. There is Dasher and Donner and Comet and Blitzen. What's the one with a B? BK. What were Santa's reindeer's names? Teddy knows them. There is Dasher. I've been involved in this long enough where you couldn't just go to the computer. You had to forge and dig deep in your brain to remember all of them. Blitzen. What kind of name is that for a reindeer? Name Santa's reindeers. Deer. What do I recall? What are the names of Santa's reindeer? Surrey's giving them for me. In modern times, Santa has recognized 9 reindeer. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. And Rudolph. Well, what's Blitzen? Blitzen is the bravest member of the team, apparently. Never one to back down or give up in the face of adversity. He encourages the rest of the team, even though the toughest storms, to make sure that they successfully deliver presents in time for Christmas. His name means lightning. Some people say because he has been struck so many times, and together with Donner, they make a formidable couple that are the backbone of this magnificent bunch. Blitzen, a.k.a. Lightning. I hope the next Michigan coach nickname, Blitzen. Not a bad one for, let's say, Cole Sullivan. Blitzen. We want no that. Actually, that's the name for Wink. Blitzen. Too much Blitzen. Too much reindeer games from Wink, except against Ohio State when he just went anti-Blitzen. That was it. Whew. Okay, now we're done. Good night. See you later. See you over on the Maze and Blue.